We're living in some really weird times right now with COVID-19, and the whole world's pretty much quarantining right now. And for a lot of people, this means being quarantined with somebody who is toxic or narcissistic or, just a difficult person in general. And you don't know how to cope with this or what to do to have at least a little bit of peace during this time. So my heart really does go out to you if you're in this situation. It really sucks. I get it. I had to go through it for decades of my life, not in a quarantine situation, but I get it, being under the same roof as somebody for an extended period of time, and you can't really necessarily go out for anything other than just the essentials, which is what we're going through right now. So I've put together a few steps on how you can cope and what you can do to maintain your own sanity during this time when you're stuck under the same roof as somebody who is being emotionally abusive and toxic towards you. So before I get started, I just want to say that if you are dealing with somebody who is physically abusing you, this video is not going to help, and you need to get the authorities involved in that. Go to an emergency shelter, call 911, find a domestic hotline phone number for whatever part of the world you're in. And this video is not going to help you if you are being physically abused and your life is in danger. So definitely go seek the resources that exist for people who are dealing with domestic abuse. So now that that's out of the way, let's get started. So the first thing is you need to identify your goal. Is your goal to have more peace during this trying time that everyone's going through? I'm going to assume that that's probably your goal. Hopefully this ends sooner than later, but for the meantime, for however long is left of this, these tips should be able to help you get through this with as much of your sanity intact as possible. So your goal is your sanity, to keep things calm, to, be calm, essentially. And step number 2 is to recognize that the only person that you have control over is yourself. You cannot control another person. So these tips are primarily going to be how you can modify your own behavior to have the sanity that you want to have during this time, because we cannot control another person. Literally, you have no control over how somebody else is going to act except for yourself. So I know it sounds unfair that you're the one who's being emotionally abused and you're the one who has to do all the work, but nothing you can say to a toxic person is going to make them not be toxic. Like, I am sure that if you're in this situation, that if you have tried to explain to a toxic person that, they're being terrible to you, you want them to change, and then, either there's one of two things that are going to happen. Either they're going to react and put the whole blame on you, and they're going to villainize your reaction to their abuse and make your reaction the problem when the real problem is their abuse, or they're going to pretend to apologize and they're going to be good for like a little while, and then the next thing you know, before you can blink your eyes again, they're back in those patterns of being emotionally abusive to you. So I will never ever give the advice of talk it out with that person, because if they're truly toxic, if they're truly narcissistic, nothing that you can say to them is going to make them be a decent human being. So you have to understand that and allow yourself to be frustrated with how unfair it is that you're the one who has to do the work in order to, heal and keep the peace and all that kind of stuff. It is very, very flipping unfair. I totally get it. You just have to understand that they are incapable of self-introspection. They cannot ask themselves, how can I improve myself? Because they think they're the best. And by you doing the work, it doesn't make them It doesn't validate them being the best. So understand that their whole thought process, their whole desire is to get your emotional reaction. Like, they're emotional vampires. They live to get a rise out of you, whether it's positive or negative. That is just how they operate. It doesn't make any sense, and it won't make any sense. As long as you're not in that mindset, it will never make sense, because obviously you don't act like that if you're watching this video. And even if you have been toxic, like, there have been times where I've been toxic myself, because that's all I knew growing up, like toxicity, narcissistic abuse, manipulation, stuff like that. But the difference is I and yourself, if you're identifying with this, have had the ability to be like, wait a minute, am I wrong here? Holy shit, yes I am. What can I do to change this? A true narcissist, a very toxic person, will never be able to have that self-reflection that myself, that you have. So don't worry about if you're the toxic person. That's going to be another topic for another video. But understand that. And I get it, because you're able to self-reflect. You assume that other people should be able to also self-reflect, but they cannot. They cannot, and you have no control over that, and nothing that you say to them will get them to do that. So you really have to make peace with that. And making peace with that is you process the emotions towards that. So allow yourself to be upset about it, allow yourself to be angry about it. It's okay. And just because you're feeling an emotion towards something, it doesn't mean you have to act on the emotion, right? So feeling an emotion is you just be. You don't have to do anything about the emotion, just be with that emotion. The next step is to journal. And I recommend journaling for every situation out there. Like, journaling is such a profound medicine. Like, it's really a medicine. Journaling is a way to heal. And I recommend everybody journal. I tell all my clients to journal, because when you journal, you have no idea what you're going to write about. And that's the best part of it, because everything just kind of comes out organically. And when I say journal, I mean journal with no censor. So drop as many F-bombs as you want. Write about, like, how angry you are, you want to punch somebody in the face. That's fine, because these are all thoughts, and thoughts are not real. They're just thoughts, and you don't act on every thought that you have. So understanding that when there's an emotion behind a thought, you still don't have to act on it. And that's the beauty of journaling, because you're doing the action of writing, but you're also reflecting on the emotion. So when the narcissist or the toxic person or whatever provokes you, you don't react emotionally. So the next step is to not react emotionally and go to your journal to react emotionally, because then you're putting that energy into yourself rather than giving that energy away to this toxic person. And the next step is to master the art of gray rocking. I have done a video on this in the past on how to deal with a narcissist, so you might want to refer to that for more tips on how to deal with a narcissist or toxic person. But gray rocking is going to save your ass so much, especially during this pandemic. And you know, now that you're really kind of stuck with that person, you have this opportunity to really master the art of gray rocking, because I'm gonna tell you straight up, the first time that you gray rock somebody, it's not gonna go well. But that's the same thing as a baby learning how to walk, okay? So if a baby tries to walk, they're going to fall because it's the first time that they ever tried this. So it's gonna be the same thing if it's your first time trying to gray rock somebody, and I'll get into what this means, what gray rocking is for those who don't know. But the first time you do it, it's not going to go well. And it's important to understand that this is a muscle that you build. You know, the first time you go to the gym, you don't come out ripped with these massive biceps. It does not work that way. So it's something that you build the skill over time. And now that like we really don't have that many distractions these days, you know, with this whole quarantine thing, now is a great time to actually build that muscle. Gray rocking, for anybody who doesn't know, is you take on the persona and the excitement of a gray rock. So that means you be as boring as humanly possible, like be extremely boring. And honestly, with the way that things are right now, life's pretty boring, isn't it? So you don't necessarily have to be dishonest about how boring your life is. Because when a narcissist asks you how your day went, and then you go into a whole story of like, oh, it was good, and this, and this good thing happened, they will be jealous of the fact that you had a good day, and then they'll try to one-up you, and then maybe they'll do like a pity party thing and start talking about what a bad day they had, or they'll start talking about like this other really good thing that happened to them, and then the conversation just turns into how you're a piece of shit and they're the most amazing person ever. So, you know, that's the importance of gray rocking. And even if you tell them that you had a bad day, they're going to feed off of that because you're giving them an emotional response. You're giving them an emotional like ammo or whatever you want to call it. You're giving them something to feed off of, and then they feed off of it, and then the next thing you know, you're in this conversation about what a horrible person you are when you're not, and you're confused and you don't even understand how you even got onto this topic. So that's why gray rocking is so important. So you just give them a basic one-word answer, talk about the weather, talk about, you know, something random, like just don't talk about yourself, right? Or if you are gonna talk about yourself, make it very boring, like make it seem like you lead the most boring life of all time. And as you do this, as you continue to do this, like at first the narcissist is going to probably be confused. Like straight up, they're going to be confused because they're not getting that supply that they are used to you giving to them. So understand that. And this is why it's not going to go well the first time, because then you're going to most likely, and don't beat yourself up for it, get emotional, which is completely normal. Because you have this thing, you have this new tool that is supposed to work, and it does. Trust me, it does. You just have to keep doing it. But it's very discouraging when you do it the first time, and then next thing you know, they're manipulating you again, and you don't know what to do. And of course, you're not going to know what to do, because if it's the first gray rock conversation that you've ever had, you're not going to know how to continue it, to continue gray rocking. And that's okay. The point is, you try again next time. Just the more you do it, the more you build up this skill, the more it's just going to become second nature to you. Okay? I hope that this has been helpful for anyone who is living with a narcissistic individual during this quarantine time. And yeah, basically the two big takeaways for this: journal to express your emotions, and gray rock the hell out of the narcissist, and understand that you might not get it right the first time, and that's okay. That's totally okay. Again, you don't go to the gym for the first time and walk out of there ready to, I don't know, do a muscle competition or whatever, right? So it's the same thing with any new skill. Gray rocking is a skill. It really is. And you become a pro by repetition, by practicing it, by continuing to do it, by not giving up on it. And the more you gray rock, the more you'll see that the toxic person, the narcissist, is going to have less of an interest in talking to you, which that's pretty great, because the less they talk to you, the less they can provoke you. And it's important to just remember to express your emotions as you go through this, as you keep going, as the days go by, because what happens to emotions that are not expressed? Where do they go? They go nowhere. They stay in your body, and then you end up with pain. You end up with physical pain. So if you haven't seen my previous videos about like all my repressed emotions and my chronic pain that I went through for 4 years, I highly suggest you take a look at those, because now we have time, right? But just understand that by not expressing your emotions, they go nowhere.